Hey YouTube, Luminous Star here. Welcome to my channel, Luminous Star. Today I'm going to be talking about, I'm just going to be really giving you guys a little bit of background about how I was stuck. I've had several toxic relationships, like most of us on the planet. We've had at least one or two, and I have certainly not been excluded in that group. I've had a few toxic relationships too. And today I want to talk about how, during those times when I was stuck, during my journey growing up, during those times, I got to reflect at one point when I started, dealing with the fact that I was trauma, when I started to heal, when I started taking that time out in my life to really invest in myself. Meaning, yes, starting to heal, starting to face some reality about, okay, when I was growing up, this is some of the things that caused me trauma, because for quite some time, guys, I wasn't dealing with it. I was in denial. And I think a lot of us do that in the beginning. We just stay in denial about it. But, when I was growing up, there were a few narcissists in my life. And that was some of the most confusing times in my life. I felt so confused as a child. When you're surrounded by adults, at some point, really not really at some point, but as a child, intuitively, that these people are supposed to take care of you, and that they're supposed to be responsible for you. You may not be able to put it in those words, depending on how young you were. But as a child, intuitively, I think all children, they know the people, the adults in their life is supposed to take care of them. I think they know that intuitively. And when I was a child, there were so many mixed messages from the narcissists. And I remember just sometimes really feeling like, I was invisible. And then sometimes I would feel like things were going to be okay. But then when that time came, it was like the rug was pulled out from up under me, and it was like, okay, now I don't love you so much anymore. That kind of feeling. It's like those mixed messages. Okay, today I love you, but tomorrow I hate you. Oh, I love you again today, and then it's just that, a lot of confusion. So when I was a little girl, there was a lot of mixed messages just from some of the adults in my life who turned out, yes, I realized that they were narcissists. And of course, to this day, they still are. I'm just saying that when I was a little girl, I was very confused about a lot of things, and that was one of them. Just some of the adults in my life who were narcissists. And I was like, oh my goodness, I feel like I'm loved, but I'm not quite certain that I'm loved and cared about. I'm not sure. And so that caused some confusion. And I realized when I grew up to be an adult, I realized that, first of all, the narcissists are wounded children in adult bodies. And of course, when I was a child, I didn't realize that. But when I began to heal, and as I kept growing, I realized that. And the other thing that I realized was that no matter how angry I got with the narcissist, no matter how upset I was, no matter how many times I tried to reason with them and get them to see my side or see my point of view, it was just useless. It wasn't going anywhere. And now I get it. I understand now that with narcissists, it's a behavioral problem. It's an issue. They have a personality disorder, cluster B personality. And of course, when I was growing up, I didn't know that. I didn't realize that. Especially as a child, I didn't know that. All I knew is that sometimes I felt like I wasn't loved, and then sometimes I did feel like just maybe I was loved. It was always that question mark, no matter what, even on a good day, right? From the narcissist, I didn't really feel like I was loved, right? Family, some narcissists in my family, like, still it was that question mark, like, okay, does this person really love me? And in my little child mind, I'm like, at that moment when I was growing up, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't really know if I'm cared about or not. But it was very confusing, especially as a child. That could be very, not only traumatic, but confusing, right? So it was always that question mark, no matter what. no matter what was going on, even on a good day. And I was like, oh my gosh, when I grew up and I really put everything into context, blew me away. Like, okay, I never had a chance with the narcissist. Never had a chance, because right from the start, it was going to be somebody who would behave as if they are in opposition of me. And again, as a child, if they have a narcissist in their life, and that so-called adult who's a narcissist, right? But we all know now that wounded children in adult bodies are narcissists. You know, that's part of their MO. And it's like, to a child, it's like, does my mommy or my daddy love me? You know, sometimes I feel like they do, but even then it's a question mark. And this is what the little child may be feeling and thinking, like, I just don't know. It's almost like they're mad at me, but I don't know why. And this was some of the thoughts that were going through my mind as a little girl. And, you know, some children who experience this, I can only imagine, right? I mean, I've been through it, so I can kind of imagine what they may be thinking and feeling when an adult who's a narcissist, who's supposed to be taking care of them, is giving them these mixed messages. Like, today I love you, but tomorrow I hate you. Or, you know, just back and forth. It's just constantly. And the child is wondering what they did wrong, but the adult, well, mommy and daddy is not telling me what I did wrong, but I feel like they're mad at me, right? But I just don't know why. And that makes a child feel so awful, you know? But that's very traumatic to children. I'm speaking from experience. I know for me it was. So when I grew up as a woman, you know, as an adult, and I started putting things into context, and I started dealing with the fact that I was traumatized from certain things in my childhood that I had experienced, particularly at the hands of narcissists, I was like, oh my gosh, no wonder I was very anxious and shy as a child. Because I was very uneasy, because things at home were not very easy, you know, or things at home weren't very loving and secure, you know, and I didn't feel that. So when I went out into the world as a 6-year-old going to school, you know, as a 5-year-old going to kindergarten, and on just whatever the case was, whenever I left my house, you know, where mommy and daddy was, whenever I went out into the world as a child or a teenager, I was not feeling very good at all. I always felt like something was wrong. And I always felt like I had something to do with it. It was my fault. But I didn't know what to do to fix it, because I didn't know what was wrong. Right? So that was very confusing for me growing up. But again, as an adult, when I became a woman, I started putting things into context, because I started taking the time out for myself to heal, to face the reality that, hey, this is what happened to you. You know, I would tell myself, this is what happened to you. You got to face it. Yeah, it's scary. It's effed up. It's screwed up. But this is what happened. This was your experience. It's no longer your experience, but it was. And so you need to understand, you know, what happened to you, so that way you can heal. And so this is what I would, you know, tell myself, like, you know, okay, it's painful, but I have to face it. I have to look at it. And so that way I can continue to move forward. Right? So that's what helped me, guys, when I started putting everything into context and I started facing reality. And yes, it was scary. Hella yeah, it was very painful. There were days, guys, sometimes I just wanted to call the narcissist up and just cuss them the hell out. How can you do this to me? You know, I had my moments like that. I had my moments. And that's called grieving. And what's some of the steps of grieving? That includes being angry. And I let her rip. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I just let her rip. Just whenever I was feeling angry, I just let it go. At first, it was difficult because I felt guilty. And I understood at some point in my healing that was that was the programming that was in my subconscious mind. That was downloaded, by the way, by some of the narcissists in my childhood who were supposedly adults. They put that type of program into my subconscious mind. So whenever I even thought about defending myself against them, I would feel guilty, even though I had no reason to feel guilty. Right? But that's the way it was. So I started putting things into context And when I was healing and I realized that, oh my gosh, there was never any chance. I'm speaking of the narcissist. You know, I've had several toxic relationships because I was programmed and groomed to have that for the rest of my life. Therefore, so the narcissist can keep getting supply, you know. So they don't want you to ever have healthy relationships. As long as the narcissist knows that you are in toxic relationships after toxic relationship, long after you're no longer having nothing to do with them, they're satisfied because they still get that. They still get the supply because they don't want you to be happy, right? So when I was having a few toxic relationships, even in my adulthood, and I just got to the point where I was like tired of being sick and tired. I knew something had happened to me when I was little. And I knew there was reasons why I kept on making these certain poor choices when it came to selecting people for partnerships. And it kept repeating itself. And I knew there was an origin somewhere. I said, this started somewhere. So, of course, I looked at the source. And that was how I grew up. I started looking at, you know, how I grew up and who had something to do with that. I just looked at the whole thing. And that really helped me out a lot to just keep moving forward. But I wanted to go ahead and say the other thing that I realized was no matter how much I negotiated or compromised with the narcissist, it just wasn't going to happen. There was not going to be a meeting of the minds. There wasn't going to be any peace because the narcissist doesn't operate that way. It's a behavioral problem that they have. They have a cluster B personality. That's a personality disorder. So when narcissists, when children are dealing with so-called adults who are narcissists, they have a cluster B personality, the child has no choice. They have no chance. They have no chance. What I mean by that is that there's no getting, as far as like the narcissist is concerned, the child will never get that peace of mind from the narcissist. They will never get that clear picture of why is mommy mad at me? Why is daddy always angry? See, they're not going to get that from the narcissist. That child, they will never get that answer, not from them. So the picture will not clear up as far as like the narcissists go. They're not going to get that clear picture. So when I grew up, I come to realize that, hey, narcissists, the way they operate is that they always want you to feel uneasy. And it's like, you're not going to get that answer from them. Why? As you grow up and as you start to heal, you come to that for yourself. And so I never got that answer from them, the narcissist. Like, why were they angry? Why did they seem to be in opposition of me all the time? Didn't get that from them. I had to figure that out on my own. And as I built my support base, when I started healing, then the picture started to clear up. And so what I found out, guys, as long as I was in a state of resistance, the narcissist wasn't changing. I was angry. I was hurt. I was dealing with all these emotions. And no matter how much I was going through that, the narcissist continued to keep doing what they were doing. It wasn't going to change. And so this is what I find out, is that when you start to heal and grow, you have to realize that the narcissist is not going to be on board for that. They're not going to be a part of your support base. They're not going to be interested in that. So you have to just keep it moving forward, and you have to make sure that your support base consists of people who do care, and at least they can resonate with your experiences. And so what I found out, guys, is that as long as I kept making it about, you know, me against the narcissist or the narcissist against me, you know, as long as I kept with that mentality and I kept trying to make them wrong, and I kept trying to get the validation from them, the explanation, the apology for all of the, you know, abusive behavior and all of the times that, you know, they let me down when I was a child, it just wasn't going to happen. Nothing, you know, I remained stuck. So that's what I learned, guys. And I wanted to share that with you today in the video. And, you know, because I had an epiphany. And, you know, I have a lot of epiphanies and I love it every time I have it. So I just wanted to share that one with you guys today, that, you know, just years after the childhood experience, and when I started as an adult, as a woman, when I started to put the pieces together, this was part of my support base. when I started to heal, I realized that I was stuck. As long as I kept going back to the narcissist, I was stuck. As long as I kept going back, wanting to get the validation, wanting to get the answers, wishing to understand why they did what they did, and even the story behind their story. Narcissists don't do that. They're wounded children, and they're going to keep on lashing out at everybody they can to get the supply. And so, but it took me a little time to realize that when I started healing, and when I started putting everything together, and when I started dealing with the fact that I had been traumatized, the picture was cleared for me. And so today I realized that, one of the things that narcissists do, and this is with everybody, they always make sure that the environment or there's tension in the air, because they want to make it seem like that it's them against you. They want that kind of feeling in the air. They want you to sense that they are against you. They don't, they might get along with everybody else. This is the message they want in your head, that they get along with everybody else except you. And you are the one that makes them feel upset, whatever that may be. Whatever that, it can be anger, it can be depression, whatever. They want you to think that they are in opposition of you is because you're the one that's making things difficult. And I learned that, guys, that's just not true. Narcissists tend to be their own worst enemy, and they are spreading the misery. Misery loves company. That's what they say, right? So guys, again, I just wanted to share this with you, and wherever you are, I hope you are taking care of yourself, and stay tuned for more videos. If this is your first time visiting the Luminous Star, welcome, and I hope you come back again. To current subscribers, mwah, thank you so much for your subscription. Guys, leave comments and leave questions, and at the end of the video, please hit the like and or subscription button. Stay tuned for more videos.